Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Wandering Road podcast. I'm your host Chris, along with my asshole Dean. I'm, I'm kidding.
Your tight puckered asshole D is what you meant to say.
Along with my co-host Dean. And for today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Dogman. And I will say that if you have not listened to the episode that we had with the host of the Highway of the Hidden podcast, Polar Bear, he was back on a second time. We were talking a little bit about Dogman, a little bit about Bigfoot, and I really enjoyed that conversation. So if you have not listened to that episode, go ahead and check that out. That is why we are doing a Dogman episode today, because I don't know about you, man. I think I told you this before, but I always thought Dogman in general was like kind of full of shit.
Yeah.
And I guess it's because so many folks, paranormal podcasters and whatnot, went on such like a fucking deep dive going to hunt for the Dogman and all this shit that I
Right.
was like, okay, you're kind of blowing this out of proportion. But we talked to Polar Bear. He shared some stories that he researched about Dogman and Dogman fighting Bigfoot. I was like, oh shit, kind of want to talk about this cryptid and get into the origins of the Dogman,
Right.
describe what he looks like, maybe go into some detail about other Dogman stories and legends across the world and throughout history. So I'm kind of excited to talk about this one.
That's the one thing I agree with you on. Like originally it was kind of like, dog man, that's kind of boring. Like a man who is a dog. Like if you have a werewolf, at least it's kind of cool because the werewolf
Like, is
is
this
like
guy a
out.
furry?
Yeah, exactly. Like a werewolf, like at least they're out in the wild. Like a wolf is wild, like it's mysterious. But a dog is just like this playful, like like pet me. Or dogs are derived from wolves. So I feel like we could just kind of say like post wolf man instead of dog man. That would make it more interesting, because to me dogs are awesome and they're really really cute and fun. If you throw the fixation of cryptid and human into that, what's the cool shit about Dogman? Let's hear it.
It'd be funny. The head of the Dogman was like different types of dogs that we have as household. Could you
Like a
imagine
pug.
a golden retriever
Oh my
a
god.
pug dog?
Oh my god, it's gonna eat my face up. Oh, it's so cute. Look at that. Oh,
Look at that. He just wants to play fetch
yeah.
with the
With
deer
my
lip.
balls. With my literal balls.
Dumbass. No, but could you picture that dog man? It's like you hear this like thudding coming through woods of like a very like heavy,
Yeah.
big animal.
Danger. Yeah.
And
Oh shit, I'm gonna
you see
die.
its head peek through the woods and it's the head of a fucking bug.
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? And
And
you're
it's
just, yeah.
all
Dude,
you hear
that would be
coming
oh
from the
my
tree
god.
line is because pugs have like trouble breathing. Apologies to any pug owners, but
No, don't apologize. They have trouble breathing. You know it.
they
You
do,
know that they
and
have
I
a
feel
problem.
bad for them. I
Yeah.
really
They
do.
were bred to have a problem. Like I feel like the rest of humanity is right now. We're just bred to be falling apart.
Why would anyone breed an animal to have a breathing problem? Like, I don't
Listen
understand.
to me. Listen to me. This is we're not gonna go down a rabbit hole right now, but like I just
Okay,
have to
okay.
say something. We've only been around with these dogs for what 50 years of breeding. How in the holy hell could we not agree that humans are part of this whole evolutionary chain? How do we know that we're not being bred in a certain way? It's so possible that we could be bred to be a certain way. It's called eugenics, right? Like that's the whole thing of
Yeah.
eugenics. This is what gives credibility to me to things like Dogman or Bigfoot. Like 10,000 years of human history, if it only takes 50 years to breed a normal sized dog that comes from a wolf into a pug that can't breathe, then like
I can't breathe.
10,000 years, 10,000 years is enough for something or someone to breed humans into whatever we are now, or some whatever sub level. Like there's got to be something. Bigfoot, there has to be something to that. That's all I have to say.
You want to see how fucked up breeding dogs have become? Look up what a German Shepherd looked like in like the early 1900s, like 1910, 1920.
Oh, I'm
And
sure. I'm
look at
sure.
what they look like now. Drastically different. Anyways, I digress. So let's jump on to the Dogman. For some background about the Dogman is a cryptid and urban legend most commonly reported in the United States, especially in Michigan, Wisconsin, and mostly in the Midwest. I believe Polar Bear said that there were some Dogman sightings in Northeast Texas. I apologize, Polar Bear, but if I get that wrong, you have my number. Text me, call me a jackass, correct me. The Dogman is described as being bipedal, wolf like creature standing between 6 to 8 feet tall with the body of a muscular man, but the head of a canine. See, I knew it. The head of a canine. It doesn't mean that it's a wolf head. It could fucking have the head of my little Jack Russell. Could you
Listen,
imagine this huge
listen.
body?
This this to me, this is immediately sounding like a psychological torment situation in which somebody has a really, really messed up brain and they cut off the head of a dog and it's just this jacked
Oh
6'2"
no.
guy and he just puts the dog's head on him while it's dripping blood. Like I feel like I don't know. Like that
Why'd you have to
okay,
go there?
before I
That's
get to
a
that,
bad image.
it's a bad image, but that's what I go to when I hear all this. So just keep going because I'm gonna stop. I want to actually hear the creepiness of what it would be to actually have a real dog man.
All right, 100%. Yes, we shall continue. People compare the dog man to a werewolf, though unlike werewolf traditional werewolf myths, the dog man is often seen as its own distinct creature rather than a human cursed to transform. So that's an important detail there. Werewolves, humans that transform into wolves. Sounds like a very painful process, but you get really super fucking strong. Dogman is just body of a man, head of a wolf or a dog, a pug, who knows? If you go back in history a little bit, dating back to like the 1800s, folks out on the frontier in the Midwest and Michigan, folks that are like lumberjacks and farmers, they report encounters with the wolf like beast walking on two legs. So in the Americas, around that region, it's a commonplace. Well, not commonplace. It was a sighting that people claim to have seen this creature. When you fast forward to 1987, DJ Steve Cook of WTCM Radio in Michigan released a novelty song called The Legend, a spooky ballad about the Dogman. And that's when listeners began writing in with their own alleged encounters with the Dogman, which gave life to the legend. So, a little bit more about the Dogman. When I said it had the body of a man, don't think of it as like a human body, right? With just the head of a dog. It was covered in fur, had a canine snout, sharp teeth, and glowing eyes, often described as either amber or blue. It can run on both legs or on fours. And many people report its unnerving ability to shift between walking upright like a man and sprinting like a wolf. Witnesses claim that it can make a chilling howl sound like a wolf or a human like scream. Michigan and Wisconsin seem to be the hotspots, especially the forests of those areas, even though we have Dogman reports stretching across North America. Folks that have seen the Dogman claim that it stalks the roadsides, forests, and rural areas, appearing briefly before vanishing without a trace. And there are also Native American legends of wolf spirits and shapeshifters that resemble modern Dogman reports. Before I jump into that, I'll toss it over to you for your thoughts.
So you had me enthralled for a while there until you said that this radio host
I
that put
know.
out this call.
I know.
I know. Yeah.
Right.
And it's just like, so if somebody popular or famous puts a story out there that is new or novel, that's not necessarily a way to discredit the story itself, but you definitely have to give credibility to the idea that people who are going to listen to that, like at least half of them are going to be people, which I don't understand. I don't understand how people are like this, like humans are like this, but like they hear a story about that and they're like, oh, I got to make something up. Like I just feel like I want to be a part of this conversation. So I think I saw something weird. Not sure what it was, but my brain is automatically going to go to like, yeah, I saw a dog man. They're going to write about it. They might even be able to articulate it really well, at least 50%. But I also have to say that during a time like this, you kind of pull credibility away from people who do have weird stories. And you kind of brought it back home to me when you tied it to Native American lore, which goes way far back before any of these more modern stories were occurring. So you have to take one of two stances. Either one, you accept the idea that these Native American lores have been around for a long time and they've been traveling through the societies that people have been growing up in and they've evolved, or people are really seeing shit going all the way back to Native American times, and it's all the same. And that's what's so hard about deducing what's really going on in these stories. It's like, is it just a grapevine thing where these stories like they keep traversing human experience in a location and people see weird things, but they kind of want to accept or believe that it's something supernatural, dogman or whatever? Or are they actually seeing, you know, bipedal creatures going down to all four legs and they're like, no, I saw something really fucking weird and I think it was Dogman. That's the whole crux of this conversation. That's why I like cryptids, because cryptids are so interesting. They play into the human narrative. It's not like ghosts moving things around in the moment. This is actually a string of stories out in the wild that are affecting people's perception of what's going on. That's what I go to.
That's a good point. But jumping to the Native American aspect of this.
Yes.
So, as we know, and as we've discussed, Native American folklore and traditions have shapeshifters, right? So, long before we hear the term dogman, several Native American nations had legends of beings that blended human and animal form. At the top of the list for these legends, skinwalkers. Skinwalkers were said to have been powerful witches that take on the form of wolves, coyotes, or dogs. And this is mostly a southwestern tradition, and it holds to the theme of a human animal hybrid. And this is widespread across tribal stories. So we have the skinwalker. Then we fast forward to the Algonquin peoples, in which they talk about the Wendigo. Even though the Wendigo is not a canine, it's a monstrous spirit tied to hunger in the wilderness. Some dogman stories echo the same fear of wilderness dwelling beings that blur the line between human and beast. And we have the tales of spirit wolves. And from the Great Lake tribes, their stories say that these wolves could act as spirit guides or as omens. A human sized wolf walking upright could symbolize imbalance between the human and the natural world. Some people suggest that the dogman could be a modern spin on these older stories that have been passed down from the native tribes.
Can I just say real quick, like, you know how like we have this modern context that we live in where it's just like most of the people out there are just living their normal lives. Imagine like you're in a Native American tribe, right? And you're like hunter gathering, like you're living your life in the now, like you're doing the things that sustain your culture and your people's tribe. And then some guy in your tribe who you're kind of like iffy about, he comes out of the woods like, I saw Dogman. I saw him. I saw the Bigfoot, and you're just like, God damn it, runs with wolves. Like, you just like, we're just
Fucking
trying to
stop.
do our shit. Like, we're just trying to build our society and hunt and gather and live and be happy. And you have to inject this 7-foot dog man who's going to rip our jugulars out. Like, so that's the story of what we deal with every single day.
Oh man. Yeah, that is true. That is true. I would not be surprised if that was the case back in the day. Some fucking village idiot.
Remember from Almost Heroes with Chris Farley, and there
Yeah.
was like that one Native American guy, and he's like, this is Crazy Feather, and he's like, yeah, he's not right in the head. That's the guy who came up with Dogman.
Almost Heroes. That's such a good movie. So, with Native American folklore, you have kind of some aspects alluring to the dog man. So, I can see how in the modern world, people can take maybe potential sightings of spirit wolves and skinwalkers and attributing them to dogman sightings.
Yeah, something they can't explain. Yeah,
We can go on to what we touched on a little bit ago with the folks on the frontier. So we had European settlers and lumberjacks arrive in Michigan and Wisconsin in the 1800s. As you know, those areas during that time were vast, dense forests filled with wolves and bears. Around campfires, stories of upright wolf like beasts began to circulate among the settlers and the lumberjacks. These tales were often warnings to keep greenhorns from wandering at night. Man wolves also ended up becoming cautionary figures, half human, half beast, serving as metaphors for greed, violence, or losing one's humanity. Which is interesting because this is how Europeans used werewolf stories as a moral tale. So maybe the folks on the frontier were seeing Dogman. There were Dogman sightings. But then again, based off of their background, I could see how they could use that and these claims. You know, like with the fable, like there's always a moral to the story. Same concept here is how I would view that.
Yeah, I agree because we talked about that many times in the past with, for example, the wailing women. Like the wailing woman concept is across many cultures about the dangers of either like whatever it is, like being promiscuous or
Mhm.
marrying a husband who's abusive or the dangers of like harming your children because of your upsetted situation, like whatever it is. And so I think there's more to these stories that play into that narrative than we suspect or that we're aware of, where it's like, oh, you got to be really careful. Because I just saw a statistic. It's interesting we're talking about this, but I just saw a statistic that was like a random Facebook reel or TikTok video or something where it was talking about how many deaths of humans are attributed to what every single year worldwide, and wolves were like in the middle. Like wolves are responsible for a middle factor of human deaths per year compared to all the other major factors across the globe. And that's really interesting. So you could probably translate that back to a time when people were living nomadic lives or they were living agricultural, small tribal lives or whatever, like Native Americans. So you can imagine packs of wolves would be responsible for at least as many, if not more, deaths of humans in North America. So you're trying to create a situation in which you pass through your society and understanding that wolves are dangerous. Maybe it would be more conducive to say, there's a superhuman 7 foot tall fucking humanoid wolf that's going to rip you to shreds, as opposed to saying, oh, these, like they're 3 foot tall, they run in packs, they might be dangerous. Like it's like an emphasis on the danger for them to come up with these ideas. That's not to discredit the idea that there might not be a wolf man like shapeshifter, but I think that you can't have this conversation without exploring that narrative.
That is a good point. You have to take into consideration that packs of wolves fucking hunt. Some of them may be massive. Like, have you seen
Yeah,
pictures of wolves compared to
dude, they're
dogs?
fucking
They're
huge.
huge. They're massive.
So much bigger than dogs.
Yeah, but let's jump to Europe and talk a little bit about werewolves and some other traditions. So let's jump to some Germanic and Norse traditions. With the Norse, I cannot say this fucking word. I don't think you would be able to say it. It's Ulfhjanar. I don't know. I
Hey,
apologize
that
to
sounds pretty
any
good.
Nordic,
Close.
any
our,
folks from that part of the world.
our
Um,
one Nordic person who listens to us, I'm sorry to you.
I
Very, very sorry.
apologize. But it okay. Okay, Norse traditions. So any folks that have Norse backgrounds, if you want to teach us how to say this word, please reach out to us, let us know. But it translates to wolf coats. These were Norse warriors that were said to have channeled wolf spirits in battle, much like berserkers. They embodied the liminal space between man and beast.
Berserkers.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
are
yeah.
those are some of the most terrifying warriors in human history. Like,
Right.
didn't they literally like take some kind of drug and just run into battle screaming and swinging?
Or some of them were probably just like that. Like,
Yeah.
what battle was it? Fuck. Was it Stamford Bridge? I can't remember. But there was one Viking that held a bridge against an entire army, which was nuts. And they had to go under the bridge and stab upward to like kill him to get him out the way. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how
Like,
like
okay.
fierce this was.
Think about that for a second. Like, you don't have to be the best fighter. You just have to portray the sense that I'm going to take your life. And if I take your life, you're done. You're not going to see your family again. But I don't give a fuck about my family. I don't give a fuck about myself. Like, I'm just done. And therefore, I'm going to create this, I'm going to instill this sense of fear in you that I might take your life, even though you're more than me. Or you might even lose an eye or an arm or a leg. Do you want to
Yeah.
do that? Do you want to risk it? Like, that's kind of an ingenious approach. That's kind of like the approach to if you're being accosted or approached by someone who's stronger than you and they're trying to like capture you.
Yeah, but in that battle, this dude actually fucked up quite a few people. They weren't able to take him head on. Just one guy holding off an entire army, which is fucking nuts. But
Unreal.
yeah. Now jumping over to Germanic folklore also contained tales of men cursed to wear wolf skins and hunt like animals. So this is pretty much an early
Wow.
form of a werewolf, the
Wait a
myth of
minute.
the werewolf.
If you have a history in human culture where people are actually wearing physical wolf skins, that might be a good explanation as to why it translated into other cultures picking that up and then being mistaken for something like Dogman. That's weird.
So a little bit of background that I could find on that. So in the Germanic folk tales, apparently a man that would don a wolf skin could be trapped as a form of a wolf, trapped in the form of a wolf. So they could use this going into battle to try to manifest the
The
strength and
spirit,
power of
the
a
strength.
wolf, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
makes
if they
sense.
didn't remove the skin before the enchantment ended, they could be stuck as a wolf forever.
Oh man.
So in medieval Icelandic sagas, they mention magical wolf pelts that would turn a wearer into wolves for a set period of time.
Yeah.
So if you wore that magical pelt and you didn't take it off in time, well, guess what? You're fucking staying as a wolf. So you kind of shit out of luck there. I wouldn't be surprised specifically with just those types of. Now I'm thinking back to antiquity, and I'm just making an educated guess slash assumption that these folks that would wear these animal pelts, like that of a bear or that of a wolf, that they believed they were actually embodying the raw strength and power of that animal, similar to the Britannic tribes where they would cover themselves in woad. If you're not familiar with that, what that is, it's, like when you see movies of ancient Romans fighting the ancient Britannic tribes, they're wearing blue paint. That's woad. And they believed that it had enchantment and magical abilities akin to armor. But little
Dude.
did they
Wait, hold
know they got fucked
yeah.
up by the Roman legions. But anyway.
It didn't work. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is fascinating. This is kind of sidetracked. But like I saw a reel recently that was talking about like it was a scientific reel and it was
Yep.
saying how blue in nature is the most rare actual color, like true
Yeah.
natural color. Just because the way that photons and the way that development and all that stuff like blue just does not exist. And when it does exist, it's very vibrant like in frogs and flowers. So that's interesting. Like maybe they did conclude that blue was a really spiritual color that they thought that was so rare in nature it must be magical. So they put it on their shields. And of course it didn't work. Like they got fucking obliterated because that's not how shit works. But at the same time, this is tying into what we're talking about with the idea of donning a wolf pelt to gain its energy or its spirit to fight in battle or whatever. Like, who knows how that possibly could have translated into later stages of humanity in America where we're seeing Dogman. You cannot have this conversation without at least exploring that. And I'm not saying that Dogman isn't a possibility as a real entity, but like these are real progressions of human existence that just cannot be ignored.
Right. You want to know a fun fact about woad?
Please.
In order to make the woad die, as in DYE, the blue color, it had to be mixed in with stale
Semen. Come.
urine,
Okay.
ammonia,
I was close. I was
ammonia.
close.
It
Something
needed
weird. I
ammonia.
knew it. It
Yeah.
was either blood,
So
semen, or urine. I knew it.
or
Yep.
urine. Yeah. So these ancient tribes were rubbing piss dye all over themselves before going into battle. So it's a fun
And
fact.
inadvertently through that, they're calling in, they're attracting the attention of other wolves who can smell their piss and they're gonna devour them. It's all a trick. It's all a trick.
Oh, that's funny.
But imagine if you had the entirety of the human population on Earth focusing on something to manifest. We collectively want something to be true, something to happen as a unified human body across the globe. I think that there might be a reason to understand or believe that that thing would happen. The question is, would we really be able to manifest it as a human body? Like, would it be physical? Or would we just like kind of imagine it happening? And like we would think it was happening, but if everybody believed it that way, there'd be no way to prove that it wasn't happening. If everybody believes red is blue, then everybody really is going to believe that like red is the color blue, but nobody's going to be around to prove it otherwise. So it's kind of like that situation where if you believe that if you put on the skin of a wolf, you're going to turn into some berserker and go crush your enemy, and other people see that and like, oh no, he really did turn into a wolf.
Right.
Like that's really at the crux of the human experience, where it's like things are really either happening or we're imagining they're happening, and there's no way to tell the difference because we're conscious. It's an insane concept, but that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And then all falls back on superstition. And one quick example I would give is you remember that experiment, I think it was in the late 70s, where they took a bunch of college kids and some of them were prisoners and some of them were prison
Yes.
guard.
Yep, they
And
believed it. Yep,
progressively over time, they started to behave in
like
a
prison
specific
guards.
manner.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So placebo effect, who knows? It just depends.
Humans are so able to take on whatever experience they're having that it changes their, like, let's be honest, their genetic makeup, like their
Hmm.
cognitive makeup, their whatever it is. That's what's so scary about being human, is we're so limited, but we're also prone to suggestive behavior. But here's the thing though, not all of us are like that. There are some people out there, like, no matter what they were put through in that prison experiment, they would never take on the role of the prisoner versus the security guard. The reason I bring that up is because it plays into this whole narrative of the dog man versus the wolf man versus the Native American lore versus the berserker, like all that stuff. Like it's just like the perception of whatever is happening in that moment is based off not purely what they're seeing, but there's also a degree of belief and
Right.
past human experiences that you cannot escape from.
Maybe that's something we could explore on a different episode. I think it would be
Yeah,
a good
dude.
conversation.
My God.
But let's pull it back to Dogman. So if we fast forward to medieval times, we get werewolves. So specifically in France, Germany, Eastern Europe, what folks don't really tend to realize is that there were werewolf trials going alongside the witch trials, in which people were accused of making pacts with the devil and transforming into wolves at night. Like we said before, with werewolves, these are humans cursed to transform, or they magically transform. They're not a separate species, and just like the dog man. So the dog man, for all intents and purposes of this discussion, is its own separate species. It's its own cryptid. But in medieval times with werewolves, they were always a metaphor for sin, temptation, and uncontrollable rage, because what happens when a werewolf gets loose? It goes on a fucking rampage and it kills everything that it comes across, right? Sticking to Europe, and let's fast forward to 1764, between 1764 and 1767 in France, and talk about the Beast of Gévaudan, or Gévaudan, however you're supposed to say it. And this is one of the most famous real werewolf monster dogman type of stories. So this takes place in southern France, and a wolf-like beast terrorized the region, killing over 100 people during a 3-year span. Witnesses describe the creature larger than the wolf with an unusual gait and almost supernatural type of resilience. Modern historians believe it was a wolf or could have been a pack of wolves. Folklore over time spun it into a man beast tale with whispers of werewolves and curses. So here we have a real life incident where it probably was maybe an overgrown wolf, just like, with humans, we have people that grow over 7 feet tall. Maybe this was a situation where we had a wolf that was abnormally big and strong, killing over 100 people.
You're talking about a time where like there's not a lot of recourse or capacity for destroying a wolf, any wolf, regardless of size, but is certainly one that is like as tall as a man. Like what are you going to do with it? Like you don't have the ability technologically to track it, to even kill it. Like something that size, like you're going to have to unload so many rounds of ammunition into it in order to increase the chances. It's like a bear, like, you're going to have to bring it down some way, but it's going to take so much force that you just don't have that at that
Right.
time period. So it makes sense that it could take down that many people before somebody can come up with a way to fight it off or stave it off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if we go to Eastern Europe and Slavic folklore, in their folklore, they have a wolfman equivalent called the Volkodlak, Volkodlak, which kind of translates to wolfman or werewolf. And in these stories, it describes wolfmen who lurk near villages and forests, and very much like the Dogman, they were sighted along rural roads. Here we have across the pond similar stories of a dogman type of creature, whether it be a werewolf or its own type of species of animal, in which they share the same stories: sightings in forests, sightings on rural roads. But one thing that I wanted to go into, which I came across, was a timeline of these dogmen type wolf legends. So it goes back as early to 2000 BCE with the Mesopotamians, in which they had stories of men that could take on wolf form, which were seen as punishment by the gods. And to them, wolves represented chaos outside of civilization. With the Norse, we mentioned the wolf warriors that wore wolf pelts and believed to channel the wolf spirits in battle, being empowered by the animal strength. We get to the Greeks and the Romans, Lycon, who was a king of Arcadia, and he was transformed into a wolf by Zeus for his cruelty. That's where we get the word of lycanthropy. The Romans also had cults associated with wolves, tying them to fertility, wilderness, and danger. We touched on medieval Europe, which from the 12th to the 16th centuries, there were werewolf trials. Going to the 18th century, which we just touched on in France in particular, the Beast of Gévaudan. When we go to 19th century America, we talked about the Native American traditions that met frontier fear. So, indigenous legends of wolf spirits and skinwalkers blended with settler folklore. So, I could see how you take the stories from the lumberjacks and the farmers and the European settlers going to the Midwest, telling stories about man wolves, how those stories of werewolves could combine with the Native American folklore to potentially have the stories and sightings of dogmen that we see today. We go to the 20th century where we have dogman sightings in Wisconsin, where we have the Bray Road sightings, where there were reports of a wolf-like humanoid creature prowling the fields. Witnesses described it as having glowing eyes and upright movement, later popularized as the Beast of Bray Road. And then we come to 1987, where we have the song The Legend, where it talks about the Dogman, and we have people calling in saying they seen the Dogman sightings. And of course, with the 21st century, from the 2000s to the present, the Dogman joins Bigfoot and Mothman as the staple cryptid, being discussed in TV, books, and countless podcasts like us today. It's now one of the top 3 cryptids that people like to talk about. You got the Bigfoot, you got Mothman, and you got Dogman. So that's kind of like a rough timeline of where Dogman could have potentially come from. We have plethora of stories all the way from antiquity to the modern era and different places all over the world, spanning from Mesopotamia to Europe to the Americas. So, that being said, Dean, knowing that little detail, just like with so many paranormal stories we've covered, different places that at one point in time never interacted with one another have some sort of common denominator in this wolfman dogman type of story. So what are your thoughts on the dogman?
I think at the end of the day, what's most fascinating about the Dogman that you captured recently is this is not this is more of a new nuanced cryptid as compared to Bigfoot or a skinwalker or whatever. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's less reputable. I think that they're just because it's newer doesn't mean it's like not less true or believable than Bigfoot or cryptid that has to do with like shapeshifting. I think it just might be a different form that people are misunderstanding. So if people see weird things and they already know about this concept of a dog man or a wolf man or whatever, it's not werewolf related, it's not Bigfoot related. But what I'm trying to say is I think there might be a bleed over across the legitimate sightings where like somebody sees something and they already have the idea of Dogman queued up in their mind more so than Bigfoot in that moment, more so than a skinwalker in that moment. That doesn't necessarily mean that what they're seeing is not translatable across a broad spectrum. So like maybe they are seeing a skinwalker and the only way they can articulate it in that moment, because they've seen Dogman recently in news media, whatever, or read about it in Native American lore, is to say, oh no, I saw a Dogman. I saw something that looked like a dog. But maybe it really looked like a wolf. Maybe it really looked like a Bigfoot. Who knows? Those are the people who were seeing weird things that are being honest about what they're seeing. And then, of course, the other side that we talked about in this podcast is like, well, people might be embellishing or reaching or trying to find some kind of special experience that they're having that is only explainable through, say, like mythical Native American lore, but it's really not that mythical because it's not, it's not beyond explainable. This is going back to the 50-50, so to speak, experience in human nature. It's like 50% of people are trying to be super special. I'm not throwing shit on them. Like, people have issues. Like, everybody has issues. Like, they want to feel more special. That's fine. You have to leave room for that. 50% of people want to feel more special about themselves. They're seeing these things. They want to be part of the conversation. But maybe the other 50%, they are seeing things they can't explain, but at the same time, they don't have the cognition or the articulation or, what we provide for this podcast, which is historical narrative. They don't have that ability to articulate based off of all those things. So they just say, oh, Dogman, oh, Bigfoot, oh, whatever, Skinwalker. I'm not going to take away the credibility of Dogman. I think there's room for some discovery and even some criticism, but at the same time, I think that it's the same thing we've talked about from day one, which is nobody knows what they're seeing if they really believe it. They just have a certain way to explain what they're seeing, and it might not be accurate, but it's the best they can do. Because we don't see this shit every single day. Like we don't see this every day. So all we can do is to try to articulate and explain what we see in that moment. And it might not be ideal, but like that's all we've got. And I think that's why we have Dogman.
No, I think that's a good point. And one thing I will say is I think similar to Bigfoot, there's probably something out there that these people have seen over past hundreds or thousands of years that we don't really know what it is. Could be a dogman, who knows what it could be. What I would like to do for our next episode is, well, not next episode, but the next episode that we do on Dogman, I would like to do what we did for the Goat Man and for the Mothman. We could go into some sightings and firsthand accounts of what people have shared about their encounters with the Dogman. Hopefully, we come across some more stories like Polar Bear shared with us about that Dogman that stalked those people for 20 years, got into the house
Yeah.
and just growled at them and was like, "Hey, fuck you. You shot at me.
I'm going to be around for 1,000 more years. I need 20 years to say fuck you. That's all I need.
That is all I need. But folks, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We wanted to do this kind of as like a deep dive into the Dogman's history and folklore, to try and get an idea of where the concept of Dogman came from, and other stories of Dogman throughout different cultures and throughout history, which I think for me it was fun talking about. So we hope you enjoyed today's episode, folks. If you have a Dogman encounter or you have any thoughts on Dogman, shoot us an email, message us on TikTok. You could reach us at twroadpodcast@gmail.com. If you have a Dogman encounter, want to share your story, send it over. Or if you know of any type of Dogman encounters or where we could find more information on the Dogman, let us know. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of The Wandering Road. You can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, and most podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe and share. Also, don't forget to give a follow on Instagram at twroadpodcast and follow my TikTok at twrpodcast. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.